And we should be live. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Hunyadi. This is Two Legs. This is your midweek Macca break, if you will, if you want to call it something like that, or Beetle break, whatever. But anyways, I am here, and as you can see, I have a special guest, and we were going to get to him in a second, but we're going to catch up on the comments here. This is Ali, who usually joins us every time we're live, and big fan of the show. So hi, Ali. We got James here. How you doing? We got Lynn. That's going to be when Andy will do that on a Sunday when he's doing his live show. So, but Ali asked a question. Joe, I want to get your thoughts on this one too, because, as a fan of the music as well, and not just what we're going to be talking about. But first of all, let me introduce our guest here, and this is an amazing young man. His name is Joe Wisbey, and he runs a very excellent show called Beatles Books. He's had so many great authors on his show, and we're going to be talking about some of the authors and some of the books, and the good, the bad, and the ugly of these books. And we're just going to have fun, and we're going to take your guys' comments and just have fun, like I said, and see where this goes, as they say. But Joe, get to the question here. What do you think?
Okay.
The Russian or Run Devil Run? What do you think, my friend?
I think, well, probably Run Devil Run just
Yes.
edges it. Maybe because I was around for Run Devil Run. What was I in '99? I was about 15, so
Okay.
I was part of it.
Yeah. Right.
When was Chocker was about 88, 87, 88.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, 87, 88. So I would have been 14 at the
okay,
time, but I didn't listen to it actually until the early 90s. Um,
right,
so but so closer to when you listen to it. But you know what, there's some good tracks in there, but the production on Run Double Run just clobbers the
yeah.
production of the Russian album, don't you think?
Imagine if they toured that band. I know they did some
Yeah,
shows, but imagine if he'd done
yeah,
just an intimate. Obviously, there's the famous Cavern show from just
right,
before the millennium. But yeah, that was that. I mean,
yeah,
I love watching that. Thank goodness that was filmed and
right,
we've got that easy to watch. But yeah,
yes,
the songs on Run the One I think are stronger. It's got
yeah,
that. Obviously, it's sort of just post losing Linda. So there's
right.
maybe an extra emotional element to it.
Yes.
Some of the vocals are really powerful, really moving. So yeah, Run Devil
Right.
Run probably edges it for me, but they're both good,
Well,
as we know.
yeah, yeah, both good. One of my favorites that wasn't on the album, but it was on this guy, was the Enemy Last Temptation of Elvis, and
Yeah,
that's he does It's Now or Never, which is a
yeah.
really good cover. Too bad that didn't make the album proper, but whatever, it is what it is. Anyways, let's get to everybody else here. Hello, Henry. Hello, Mike. We got Beetle Eddie. We got Nick. We got Susan. We got our good friend here, Beatley Tone. How you doing, my friend? And and Mike says hello to Joe. That's very
Hello.
nice of you, Mike. Thanks. Day trip at that time. I'm going to have to go with Russian. Hey, that's fine. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but it just depends on what your ears think. I think it has to be Run Double Run. Yep. Yeah. Yep. I agree with you there, Owen. And you know Owen, right, Joe?
Yeah, yeah. I bumped into Owen at Mark Lewison event maybe last year. I
Oh,
lose track. Yeah,
very cool. Very cool.
top man, fine writer.
He is. Yes, yes. I haven't listened to either one more than a couple of times. Well, Len, there's your homework for the week. Listen to both and get back with me next week and tell me which one you like better. Okay. Hello, Ted. Tom Wisby, what a guy. You mean okay. Um, Dan says, hey folk. We got Dino V. Dino, how you doing, my friend? I got into Run Double Run listening party. Yeah, see, this guy just finds his way into just about every promotional event that ever
I'm a
existed.
fan of Dino's channel. I bumped
Yes.
into Dino at the Liverpool convention. He didn't know it was me, but he had his stall there
Okay.
and he was selling his wares. And yeah, he was You could hear him from
Right.
like the other side of the room. He was a character. Excellent channel, Dino.
Yes, I concur. So for me, it has better songs, Devil is better played, it has better production, but is very samey throughout. Okay, I can deal with that. I can go with that. Nick, Russian album. Okay, well, I'm glad to see the Russian album getting some love. Um, Lynn says I agree with Owen is also. Well, to be honest with you, Owen's known for having these great opinions. And sometimes he gets a little backlash on these opinions, but I'm glad that there's people out there that do agree with him from time to time. Run Devil is the best one. Yes. Songs written by Paul for Run Devil Run are also great. Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And then we've got Neil. Hello from Scotland. Well, hello. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Um, Good to have you here. Thanks. Okay, so Joe, talk about Beatles books, starting Beatles books, and just your passion for the books in general. Now we've had Joe on a show proper many years ago, like you said, back in 2020.
Mm.
But I thought it was time to catch up with Joe, and glad he had the time to join this. So Joe, just talk about your podcast.
Well, it came from in lockdown over here in the UK.
Yeah,
I was bored, like a lot of people were, and I noticed on Instagram that people would post pictures on accounts of
right,
stuff. So there would be
right,
like someone's keyring collection or someone's hi-fi separates or random stuff like that, and I always had a collection of those things you can see behind me. So I thought I'd start just an Instagram page where I would just post a picture of the book, of a book, every day. And that picked up a few followers, and people would message me and comment about the collection. I've got this one. That's a good
yep,
version of that one. I've got the Argentinian cover of that one, whatever it might be. And then I had an email from a publisher to say, would you be interested in a promotional copy of this book so you can then put a picture on the
yeah,
Instagram and make people aware of the book? So I said, free book, yes, please, I'm
yes,
there.
please.
So, as you know, Tom. And then that same person at the publisher messaged me and said, would you be interested in doing something with our author, which was Ken McNabb, that you might know, Ken McNabb,
Yes,
author of some
yep,
fine Beatles books.
yep.
And I thought,
Met him.
yeah, excellent, lovely man. And I thought, well, there might be a bit of a gap in the market here, maybe. And I've always had Beatles passion since I was 8, when I caught the start of Help on Sunday afternoon television. And I thought, well, I'll go for it. And I reached out to Ken, and then I reached out to our friend Ken Womack, and it just built from there. I got some good feedback from doing the podcast.
Hmm.
That then picked up the ears of a few publishers. It's an opportunity for authors to get on and talk to an audience that would probably buy their book. Let's be honest. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's good. I'm on episode. I've just released last Friday, episode 87. So
Wow.
I've stuck to it. I just do one a month now, but it's good to mix up the current books with some classic books. So there's
Right.
episodes on the Hunter Davies book. There's the Revolution in the Head episode. There's some episodes on Shout by Philip Norman that don't involve the authors themselves, but because they're important books and they're part of the story, it was good to have people on to talk about them. So it all came
Right.
from that Instagram page, which you can still see at Books Beatles on Instagram. That's where my collection is archived. You can look at the 400 or so that I had at that point. A few of them
Ooh,
have gone now. Yeah. And obviously I ran out of books to take pictures of, but the podcast by that point was running. When I came on to see you and Andy, in summer 2020, that was only
20. Yeah.
a few weeks before I did my first episode with Ken Womack. So I launched then, and yeah, I'm still here, and I've no intention of stopping anytime soon.
Excellent. Well, I don't think there's going to be any intentions of Beetle books ending anytime soon, the way we're going, and we're going to be showing a few in a few minutes. But Joe, I mean, it's definitely something that I've always been interested in since when I discovered the Things We Said Today podcast.
Mm.
They were always on the cutting edge of talking to authors and bringing books into the forefront. And then, I mean, I had like a handful. I had the Lewis and Complete recording sessions book, and I had the Beatles anthology book.
Mm,
That was basically it
right.
for the most part, you know. And then all from listening to that show, and then getting inspired to do the podcast, and then talking with authors. I think it's a great thing. I mean, it's really I think they're you make get good bonds with these guys,
Yeah.
and yeah, sometimes we do get a free book here and there, but you know what? We're out there helping promote the book,
Yeah.
so
I mean,
you
I
know,
love one of the things about the podcast that I love is sometimes, not always, but
right,
sometimes the story of the book is
right,
almost as
yes,
interesting as the
yes,
content of the
yes,
book. So, where did this person get this idea
right,
from? What did they go through? Who did they speak to? Where did they
right,
travel? I mean, there's all sorts of adventures that people get up to, and I love the fact that for most of the authors, this book is everything for them. For that last
right,
2 or 3, 4, 5, whatever years, that's their
right,
whole life, and I'm fascinated by the fact that people still want, this is such an amazing story. The people watching this will know the Beatles story is
right,
the most amazing story. So hence all
yes.
these books for us to enjoy.
Yes, very true, very true. Well, let's catch up on comments here. We got Susan said she just loves Paul's version of Brown on Handsome Man. I think it's fantastic.
Great, yeah.
Yes, Lucille, No Other Baby on most of my playlists. Very good. Owen says, a silly love songs McCartney Zenith on bass, or as a bassist, and it's up there for sure. I mean, as a solo artist, but I just think it might be his best single.
Yeah. Amazing
You
song. Yeah.
know, it
Brilliant
is
song.
an amazing song, and we're going to be talking to Cozen and Sinclair for our next episode of Two Legs, because I just finished the book this morning
Okay.
of McCartney Legacy. So here we go. Here he's showing it to everybody. Annie's been giving this book away for the last 4 weeks, and hopefully everybody's got their copy. But what an amazing book! We'll talk about this in a little bit more. But reading about silly love songs was pretty amazing because it's always been one of my favorite singles from Paul. Here we go. We got a question here from Beatletti. Now, kisses on the bottom or sentimental journey.
um, I have to confess, I don't think I've ever listened to the whole of Sentimental Journey, and if I have,
Oh,
it has
really?
been a long time ago. Yeah, not.
Right,
I mean, Kiss on the Bottom is great. A
right,
somewhat unfortunate title, I still think, but yeah,
yeah,
some terrific performances. I love the concert, the DVD, the live kisses, is it called?
yes, yeah, life
Yeah,
kisses, right.
that's great. But yeah, Ringo Sentimental Journey, not for me.
You're not too familiar with that one,
I'm not. No, I don't think I think I probably when I first got into the Beatles in
right?
the mid 90s, I probably listened to it on. I used to be able to borrow CDs from the local library. So you pay one
Hmm.
pound fifty and then take it home and listen to it. I might have done that
Okay,
with this, but it hasn't been back near
gotcha.
my CD player for many years.
Fair enough. Fair enough, my friend. As it is, it's Eric Stewart's 80th. What do you consider his finest co-write with McCartney? For me, that's easy. Well, I don't know if that's easy or not, but it's either like was it Footprints or
Footprints is great.
Yvonne
Yeah,
the One.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's great. Yeah, that's probably my favorite.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. We got City Love Songs is a great summer song. Well, I think it's just a great every day of the year song myself. And we got a special guest here. We got Joe Bazzini. How you doing, Joe? Or John, I'm sorry, John Bazzini. Hello, Tom and Joe. Have you seen the latest John Blaney book about 1973? Well, stay tuned because I will be bringing that up. Absolutely. Amazon just mailed me a copy. Looking forward to this title. Yes. Annie and I do have the book, and we are very close with Mr. Blaney. We look forward to having him back on to talk about that book. Okay, let's see here. I love hearing people's takes on which are their best books and read, and as there are so many out there, there are, and yes, absolutely. And we'll be talking more about that in a few. No, I want she's so heavy as McCartney Zenith's basis. Okay, okay. Sea Love Songs is the perfect pop song. Yes. Amazing Like the Horns. Yes. Three-part harmony. Yes, absolutely. I've only heard Kisses on the Bottom once and never Sentimental Journey. Well, okay, another homework assignment for you then, Lynn.
A lot of
We got to
homework for
get you all
Lynn.
caught up. Yeah, Slow just gets a great mood. Same with Obleti, Obleta. Okay. Let's see here. Paul's bass is perfect. Yes. Yes, agreed. Joe looks like Matthew Broderick. Have you heard that before?
I have never heard that I've looked like Matthew Broderick. I don't know. Is that like 80s Matthew Broderick or is that kind of current Matthew Broderick? I don't know.
It's not Catholic, but at least you know who he is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think he's married to Sarah Jessica Parker. So
Sarah Jessica Parker
I'm
for a long time. Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So, okay, so guests on your book, you said you started with the two Kens, right? Ken McNabb and Ken
Yes,
Womack. Well,
yes.
we're gonna just one guest that you've had on recently. I have the book, haven't got to it yet, but really cool that you got to have him on, and that's Elliot Mintz doing the We All Shine On book. And it looks like my I'm backwards here. But whatever. Anyways, um talk about getting to talk to with Elliot Manson. What did you think of the book?
I thought it was a great book. Obviously, Elliot
Hmm.
is generally has got a bit of a reputation for being very pro John and Yoko, being very
Yes.
sycophantic toward them. And I thought the book did a good job of mostly, not entirely, but mostly
Hmm.
avoiding that. He was a very interesting interview. He
Okay.
only, when I was arranging it, the publisher said, "Well, he doesn't sleep. He's an insomniac, so you have to interview
Really?
him basically at night." Now, obviously, with the time difference, it's not too much of an issue, but it was like 7:30 in the morning UK time,
Right.
and about three
Right.
a.m. for him in LA. So it was had a slightly
Okay.
kind of strange atmosphere to it, but he was very precise. He knew I mean, he knew exactly what he was going to say. He had he takes a very specific point of view about John and Yoko's relationship. Obviously, he was a huge part of the kind of Lennon estate for, you know, he worked for them for many years. I think he might have some. I imagine he's got some involvement still now. But
Right.
um, but the book itself, yeah, it does show John in some negative lights. It tells some stories about John being angry at Elliot and doesn't cover him in a huge amount of credit. And it tells some really good stuff about John and Paul. Elliot talks about a Christmas-ish time, 76 maybe, when they're there together. Talks a lot
Right.
about his observations of John and Paul, which is fascinating. Talks a bit about John asking Elliot and talking to Elliot about Paul in the late 70s when Paul's, doing Madison Square Garden and his
Right.
Wings Over the World, Zenith, and John's just at
Right.
home, not releasing music. So there's some really interesting stuff about John and Paul. But yeah, he was a lovely man, really an interesting interview. Gave me everything I wanted from the interview. But yeah, I would recommend the book. It's definitely not. I mean, it's not a huge expose. It's not going to be. It's not anything too grimy.
Right.
But
Right.
there's
It looks
lots
like
in
it's a
there
quick
to
read.
enjoy.
Looks
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it
It's
looks
not
like it's
that.
a quick read.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some good pictures as well. The pictures are
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
them are unseen
Right.
until now. So
Right. It's
yeah, I
under
mean,
300 pages.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. I mean, he was there. He was
Very
there
cool.
for
Right.
he's in the Dakota a lot. It talks a little bit about John's murder and the after effects of that. It doesn't go beyond that. So there's not hardly any content of life in the
Hmm.
Dakota after John is gone. So maybe that will come later. I don't know. But yeah, it's emotional. He was very close to the both of them. Really, they clearly thought a lot of him because they kept him around.
Hmm.
They didn't, neither John and Yoko suffer fools, as we know that.
Right.
So yeah, no, I would recommend it. I enjoyed talking to him and I enjoyed the book.
Excellent. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, the past, years, my reading has been pretty much all McCartney stuff. So,
Right.
um, but I'm going to get to that one. I have it. I'm going to get to it. But one person that we both had on,
Yeah.
and talked about Beatles films, right? And that's Act Naturally. That's Steve Mateo.
Yes.
Steve is a great guy. Really like
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah.
I've met him at the Beatles Fest here in the States. And what are your thoughts on Act Naturally?
Great book. I interviewed him twice. So I had him on
Yeah.
a few. I had him on maybe end of 21 to talk about. He did the little
Yeah.
Let It Be book, the 33 and the third
Right.
Let It Be.
Yes. Which is a good book too.
Fine little book, and that was around
Yeah.
Get Back. So we spoke
Yeah.
around, spoke a lot about
Right.
that. That book is good because what I like about that book is it gives you a good background into what else was happening culturally in the film world and a bit beyond that when Hard Day's
Right.
Night Help and all these films comes out. So it talks a lot about where cinema is, British cinema, Hollywood cinema, French Nouveau cinema, which obviously is a huge influence on Dick Lester and certainly the first Beatles film. So yeah, I enjoyed that a lot, and he's a great guest. He can talk about the Beatles for
Yes.
many hours,
Yeah.
which is what we want from a
Yeah.
podcast guest.
Right, right. You just don't ask a guy a question and then he gives you the whole story
That's
and
what you
all
want.
and one answer.
That's
Yeah.
what you want.
I was privileged to kind of proofread the help section.
Okay, right.
That was really a privilege to just be a part of that
Yeah,
process, which I
yeah,
hadn't been before. So
yeah.
let me see here. Good question here. Henry says, "Is Yoko still doing good as of recently?" Well, we don't know because she's not in the spotlight
No,
as of recently. So.
no, we don't know.
Um, yeah. Okay. Well, I don't. A lot of my stuff is in storage, so I don't have that particular book as of right now. But your thoughts on many years from now?
Fine,
So,
fine book. Very
yeah.
essential reading, really. It's a shame it doesn't go beyond the Beatle years, but I suppose it would have been
Yeah.
too much of an undertaking for him. But Barry Miles got some great stuff out of him. It
Yeah.
gives us some fascinating context into Paul's life that we didn't have before. It's quite personal. Talks a lot about he's got a childhood and teenage years that that were
Right.
glossed over in the Hunter Davies book. So yeah, it's almost an essential book. There's a few bits I would improve with it, but it's out there. It's probably you've got I Me Mine, which is George's sort of
Right.
equivalent, but that's got nowhere near the level of a kind of
Yeah.
depth and detail that many years from now has got. So yeah,
I'm sure John Lennon didn't care for it much either. So,
no, he didn't. That much we know.
yes, that much we do know. Beatly Tone says Elliot's book is on my list, but McCartney Legacy is slowing slowing him down. Just yeah, yeah. I'm exactly. That's a great thing what Joe does. That's why I like listening to his shows. He does a wonderful job. So
Thanks, Tom.
yes, every year in Liverpool, I have a big book selection in, and every year fans amaze me with book titles I don't know existed. Yeah, same here. Because we go to these the Beatle Fest here,
Mm.
and there's a ton of authors there, and they're all promoting their book. They've got their tables, and they're pushing their books, and it's been a pleasure meeting a lot of them and getting to know a lot of them, and then eventually or having them on the show or have them on the show already. So
Yeah,
and then to meet
yeah.
them in person, which is always a good thing. Here's one because one of your latest episodes was about a George book, right? So, hey, Joe, what's your thoughts on the best books to read about George? And you got that right there, won't you?
Well, I've got my most recent episode, which I
Yes.
published on Friday, is this about this
Yeah.
book, Within You Without You. Listen to George Harrison by Seth Rogevoy,
Yeah.
which so you can all listen to that episode right now if you want to. Um, it's a musical analysis, really. It's
Mhm.
um, it's not really a biography, but it talks about his whole career. So you've got all the Beatles stuff, all the solo stuff. I
Right.
would highly recommend that. The other great George book is a book from about 20 years ago by Graham Thompson,
Hmm.
Scottish author of many fine Beatles books. He was an early guest of mine. Again, didn't have to come on. The book wasn't current, but he came on to talk about his book. I think it's
Yeah.
called Behind That Locked Door.
Behind that locked door. Yes. Yeah, I have
Yeah,
that book. Yes.
yeah, great
Yeah.
book.
Great. Good. Good. You were able to talk to him. I'll have to listen. Make sure I listen to that episode.
Yeah, that's an old one. But yeah, this one, lots of musical analysis, but also
Yeah.
fills in George's story as well. Talks a little bit about and there's a psychological angle to it. Talks a bit about George's psychology through the breakup in the early 70s and stuff like that. So yeah, I would go with that one. Or Graham
Yeah.
Thompson.
Um. Yeah, and there's this chap named Owen that did a pretty good
Oh yeah, of course,
book about
of
George
course.
too. So George Harrison in the '70s. Check it out there, buddy. Check it out, fellas, if you haven't already. So there's a plug for you, sir. Um, Dino wants to know your thoughts on John books by Fred Seaman and John Green.
Okay, both over there, both out of print now. So I think, anyway,
Yeah.
quite hard to get hold of. The John Green, not much.
And
There
what
was that
was that one?
John Green. Do you mind? I might be able to
Yeah,
get
go ahead
it
and grab
if
it if you want.
it's.
Yeah.
Can I see it? I don't know if I can see it. There, I've got it. Hang on.
Okay. Cool. My stuff, I led in my truck.
So this is the John Green one. It's called Dakota
Right.
Days, and he
Okay.
was. It's hard to describe him really. He was kind of a psychic guy that lived with. Well, not lived with, but came to visit John and Yoko quite a lot. It was one of those ones where there were many books that came out after John was killed that kind of
Mm-hmm.
cashed in a little bit because people were really interested in John books. May Pang's book, Loving John, is from '83 as well. This is from '83. This is a bit of a cynical cash in. Quite a lot of it. I don't know how accurate it is.
Okay.
If you see it in a bargain bin in some little bookshop somewhere, it might be worth picking up,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it. Fred
Right.
Seaman's book, I think, is much stronger. Again, there was a long that came out in the early '90s.
Right.
Fred again. Most people probably know worked for John and Yoko in the late '70s into '80. Was there right up until the end.
Right.
Yeah, that's his book is a bit more. I kind of buy a bit more of his book. It's a little bit
Mm.
more genuine. There's some nice pictures of him. There's things like John's shopping list in that book, which is kind of crazy. But you find yourself looking at what John wanted from the local store. So yeah, Fred's book I think is a bit stronger and is a bit more. It's got a bit more to it. John Green, I
Right.
wouldn't worry about myself personally.
Okay. It's very good. Communist Broad Street. Good. Hello, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Henry says, have you guys read the Spaniard in the Works
Spaniard
book?
works. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Right. So as we know, Lennon had the two books that he released as a Beatle, and that was the second one. That one I haven't
Yes.
gotten to.
Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
something that you read once. I don't think it's one that you would sit
Right.
and read many times over.
Right, gotcha. B. Letty wants to know if I was a baby when Band on the Run was released. Well, let me see here. I was a month old when Red Rose Speedway was released, and then I would have been what, 6 months old? No, 8, I think, when yeah, I would have been 8 years old when Band on the Run was was released. So there you go. And Bila said he was 2. Okay. See, I'm still only 63. That's very specific. 63% through. She must be reading the
Must be a Kindle.
yeah, right, the Kindle version. So no way I'll be prepared for coming show on the second book. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, our friend Aaron Badgley working on 2 new books, one on Ringo, yes, I knew that, and on Klaatu, yes, I knew that as well. So Aaron's a fantastic guy. You've had him on your show, right? Talking
I
about
have.
his
Yes.
Dark
Dark Horse
Horse
book.
book, yes,
Great
which
guess.
met
Great book.
Aaron, I've had him on before, and fantastic guy. He's a
Mm.
collector as well, and of all things, especially the Dark Horse label stuff, and great guy. He has a wonderful wife, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again at the fest. So hey Tom, it's 6 a.m. So heading to bed. Just but wanted to jump on and say hello. Well, hello, boy, and good to see you. Thanks for making the time. I know it's early for you, but get some sleep, boy. Get some sleep. And there's Tone saying, Boyne and Billy Tone and Andy and Heidi, our MVP. They all got together. For Paul's concert. Did you get to see Paul live this last tour?
Out of my price range, Tom,
Uh,
unfortunately. I
no. Hey,
couldn't
listen, it's understandable, my friend. Very
yeah,
understandable.
I couldn't justify it. I mean, I've been 3 times, so
Okay.
I don't know if I'll ever get a chance again, but it was life changing all 3 times, so I'm happy.
Right. Yes, it was. I mean, that first time I saw him in '93 was definitely very, very
Wow.
life-changing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. See, Fred books may contain truth, but I am always skeptical about people writing about item that they were involved taking without. Yeah. So I mean, he was, he did was accused, and he I think he did go to jail
Yeah.
for stealing items that didn't
Yeah.
belong to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you do you know Joe Mayo, our friend
Yeah.
Mr. Mayo? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have
I'm aware.
maybe.
I'm aware of Joe's work. Yeah, I don't get to
Yeah.
watch it a
Yes.
huge amount, but yeah, no, I'm definitely
Right.
aware of Joe.
Okay. Mike says you actually said you were 8 years old when Ban. Oh, did I say years? Okay, I'm sorry. Eight. I meant 8 months. 8 months. So there you go. I asked Rogue about a book on his dad, Neil, and he said it is being worked on. Okay, well, that's something to look forward to.
That's an exclusive. I didn't
Yes,
know that.
yes, there you go. And we'll go do one more here, and we'll get back to the books. So yeah, I kept forgetting about Man on Rome was 73. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people would think it's 74 because that's when it really hit its stride. I mean, there was Man on Rome was released in 70 December of
The
73.
end of '73.
And
Yeah.
right, yeah, and then it really hit its stride in 74 with all those great Jet released as a single, and did well. Band on the Run was released as a single in 74. So yeah, I mean, it went to number one 3 times here in the state in 74, in the States, I should say. But yeah. Okay, let's get to the next book here. That's again someone else that we both had on. Let's do this one. And that's it's our friend Ken Womack, Living the
And
Beatles Legend, which the untold story of Mel Levin, which this was so needed because we
yeah.
heard, so many great things about Mel, and to finally get a peek into his life, but thanks to the family, they had his diaries, and they had so much more information to give to Ken. So yeah, fantastic read if you haven't read it yet.
Yeah, he was. I mean, Ken's in the absolute top drawer of Beatle authors for me.
Yes.
I've had Ken on 3 times. So he came
Hmm.
on to talk about the John Lennon 1980 book. My first ever episode,
Right.
my second interview, but my first released episode was the John Lennon 1980 book. I had him on with
Right.
Jason to talk about the All Things Must Pass Layla book, which was
Hmm.
maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But the Mal Evans book for me is he's probably his
Right.
finest work so far. Yeah, it's just an amazing story because it's the Beatles story, which we all know and love. But now there's an
Right.
extra element to it. Now there's this extra.
Correct.
There's another guy in the picture, and now we know a
Hmm.
bit about. How many times would you be flicking through a Beatles picture book when we were younger, and you'd see a picture at a concert, and there was Mal, and now
Right.
we're like, oh, who's that guy? He's through the whole
Yes.
story, and now we know
Right.
a bit more about him. We know about what he was doing at that point. We know about he's a very complicated home life. His difficulty. He struggled with the breakup almost as much as the four
Right.
Beatles did because he was part of
Yes.
that band. And of course it ties in beautifully with Get Back because there he is in Technicolor, moving and breathing and being around the Beatles and being a big part of that Beatles moment.
Right.
And yeah, he's just I mean, complicated story, complicated man, but brilliantly brought to life by Ken.
Yes, I agree 100% with everything you said. I find it fascinating. Was able to, on the other show, Talk More Talk, we were able to interview Gary,
Yeah.
his son with Ken, and then the last two fests, we've had. Oh, Julie is just a fantastic. His daughter, just a
Mm.
fantastic person, fun to be around. And I mean, I think she was overwhelmed at first because we were just showering her with love, but in February of last year, but then in August of last year for the second fest in Chicago, I think it was old hats for her, and
Yeah.
she just was really taken back by it. And she's just a wonderful person, just a great
Yeah.
person to be around. And Ed wants to know, what's your thoughts on Lennonology by our friend of ours. So
Shit.
what are your thoughts? Chip Madigan,
Uh,
yes.
yeah, amazing book. I had Chip as a guest on as well back in
Yeah,
21 maybe. Yeah, difficult to find.
right.
Difficult. It's not a book to read that easily. But
Well, yeah.
go on. Sorry.
No, so well, I mean, day by day account of his
Yeah.
life. I think you can still get it on his website.
Yeah.
That's where I got it. But I mean, listen, it's not cheap. It's not one of the cheaper books
Not cheap. No.
out there. But I think it's very much a necessity,
Mm.
especially if you're a huge Lennon fan.
Yeah, yeah. It's Lewison-esque, I would say, in its level
Yes,
of detail,
yes,
and yeah, it's a terrific book. And yeah, it's it enlightens you a little bit about him. And Chip was a great guest, and I think
right,
I learned a lot about John that I didn't know from that book. It hones in on
right.
everything, on everything.
Right. Sure does. I love this question from Beatly Tone because I did have a little bit of a counter with this author, and or I had some words with them. Joe,
Ah,
is it your thoughts on Jeffrey Giuliano, his books rather than his naked self in Squid Games?
good game.
But so I followed a few of the Beatle books fan pages on Facebook. Okay, so I had posted a show that we did recently at the time with an author, and so to my surprise, one night I get this message from said person, Mr. Jeffrey Giuliano, and asking me if he could come on our show to discuss, himself and why his writing styles it was the way it was, and I just ended up turning it down. I think it was a little bit more controversial than what I wanted to deal with
Yeah,
at the time. And you just don't know how these interviews are going to go with people like him.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying like him as a bad way, but he's a controversial figure. You don't necessarily know,
yeah.
how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, did you read any of his books?
No. Oh, maybe I think I had the Dark Horse George
Okay.
Harrison book.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I do the pod is to try and bring, generally try and bring a bit of joy and happiness into
Right,
people's lives, which the Beatles do. I don't get this sense from him that that's the
right,
main focus of his books. And
right,
yeah, for me, it's not. Good luck to him, and I think he's still out there,
right.
kind of going. But
He
yeah,
is.
I don't. Yeah, not for me,
Yeah.
Tom. Not for me.
Yeah. So yeah. So after thinking about it for a week, I was talking to him. I said, you know what? There's this chap in the UK named Sam Wiles. I'll let you
Oh
talk to
yeah,
him if you want. So yeah. So I gave him to our friend Sam over there, and I think he's had him on twice actually. So check that out.
well done, Sam. Well done to Sam.
Yeah, Russ, how you doing, my friend? Agrees Silly Love Songs is a perfect pop song. It is, absolutely. Let's see here. I did finish the book on Mel and one on Neil sounds interesting. Yeah, I cannot wait if that's the case.
Hmm, me too.
Absolutely. Um, if you guys could choose one Beatle book to take to a desert island, what would it be? My favorite has always been Mark's Beatles complete recording session. And you know what? That is a very, very good pick. Now, could you pick, if the book was a series, or do you have to pick just absolutely one book? But as of right now, I would probably take the McCartney Legacy series with me, uh, if I could. But I mean, does there one standout for you?
It's hard to say. I mean, the obvious one is Tune In, isn't it? Tune In is just a
Yeah, right. Yes.
masterwork. So, I mean, I've probably read it 3 or 4
Yeah,
times since, again,
right.
Mark
Oh,
was great
really?
to come on the pod. I've
Yeah.
had, as you
Well,
know.
we're just going to get to that. Yeah, because
Okay.
you were fortunate to have him on twice,
Yeah.
actually. So that's good on you, my friend. How was that experience?
Amazing. I mean, he actually I think I asked him when I started. I've met him
Mhm,
once in person. We had a mutual friend, and he did a talk in Whitechapel in London, and I got to speak to him, and then we just kept talking until like most of the
mhm.
night until the pub closed. So I approached him when I started the pod, and he was like, sorry, busy. I'm writing this book. I was like, okay,
Right.
fine. And then start of last year, he emailed me and he said, look, I've enjoyed your pods. I'm
Yeah.
free at this point. Do you want to come? I can, could you fit me in? I was like, yeah, I think I probably could fit you in.
Let me see here.
Yeah, I think I could probably do that. And then the first one, which was about his kind of life, which was really
Mhm.
fascinating, went pretty well. And then he messaged me again. He said, "Look, I enjoyed that. Maybe we could talk about
Right.
something else." I was like, "Yeah." Again, I was like, "Yeah, definitely." So yeah, and I've stayed in touch, and he lives not that far from me, so I've got to know Mark a little bit
Okay.
over the last year or so.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean, he's just he's the authority for me anyway. I think he's the right
Yeah.
person to be doing these
Yeah,
books.
no, I agree. And I got to meet him in 2018 at the White Album Symposium in New
Okay,
Jersey. Seen him at multiple fests. He's always been gracious with his time.
yeah,
Come up to him, signing a book, asking him a question. He's very, very personable, very accessible, and great time chatting with him. Wonderful person.
yeah, couldn't
Like
agree.
hanging out with him. Is there any angle on the Beatles or solo careers that hasn't been covered in print that you'd like to see researched, written about? What do you think about that?
I would say, and someone asked me this recently because I did a podcast where someone interviewed me recently,
Mhm.
and he asked a similar question, and my answer then is the same as the answer now. I would love to get a proper book on the anthology, on the story of
Mm,
how that project came together, how the documentary was made, how the Free as a Bird and Real Love sessions were, how the promotion of it went. I mean, there's a huge amount of material I think there. I had a guy on the pod called Bob Smeaton who wrote a
mm,
book, who worked on the anthology, who did some of the interviews on anthology, and because he still works for Apple, he told me in the
right,
interview that he can't be that open about some of the kind of behind the scenes stuff that went on. But there was clearly tensions in there. There was clearly moments of joy in there. I would love to see how. And the anthology was such. I mean, for people my age, kind of
right,
30s, 40s, it was a real door into the Beatles. It was just because it over here, as you know, we had the kind of Britpop movement, so
right,
it was perfect timing with like Oasis and other groups like that. So anthology meant a lot to a lot of people of my age. So I think there's a great story there. I'd love to know more. I'd love to see more. Maybe if there's going to be some
right,
kind of anniversary, we're on the 30
right.
years, aren't we, this year? So
Yeah.
I'd love to see. I mean, Bob Smeaton in that interview told me that there's hours more interviews that
Oh
they
yeah.
do.
Well, there's another cut of that out there.
Director's cut, yeah,
It's
yeah,
cut. Yes, yeah,
yeah,
that's fascinating as well. I love when they don't remember everything the same,
yeah.
which is what I'm really hoping for these 4 blocks of movies
Okay.
that there's a great, I think it's called Rashomon, that's a Akira Kurosawa film, okay? And the story is about a murder that takes place, and it's 4 people witness it, and it's their different story. It's their
Wow,
take
wow.
on one thing, and that's what kind of the approach I'm hoping they take for the film. And then the director has been on record saying that could be a possibility. So,
Okay.
and there's Joan Borelli, our wonderful friend that we're going to be seeing next month in Nashville. Very looking forward to that. Our friend John says, "Congratulations, you guys! You both do wonderful service for the fans. Love watching your interviews and sharing Beatles related news. Please keep up the great work with your dedication to John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Thank you
Thanks,
very
John.
much, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Brosh, she says the only one of his I enjoy was the Beatles album, which details his collection. Okay. Who was that?
It must be
I don't
Giuliano.
recall. Oh, maybe. Okay.
Your
I do
friend.
have his Blackbird book, the
Oh,
one
yeah, I've
I've
got
got.
that as well. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever.
yeah,
I think I might have flicked through that. Yeah.
right. Yeah, a long time ago I heard Jeffrey Giuliano died, and I think there was that rumor out there that he love him, but you know what?
He's
Whatever. All right,
okay.
let's get back to the back book. Next person that we both had on. Well, actually, no. Let's get
Yes.
to this one. Let's get to All You Need Is Love. The
Yeah. Now.
transcripts from the book that he wrote a long time ago, right? The one that Paul and Linda famously threw in the fire.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I did get sent that by the publisher, and Stephen
yeah,
Gaines. was doing the rounds. He
Right.
did a couple of Beatles podcasts. I didn't. I don't know. I always felt uneasy with that book when I
Mm,
first kind of came across it in the mid 90s because, yeah, it is a little bit. I get that there was because that's 83. That's similar time to
right. Right.
Shout by Philip Norman. So there's a bit of an appetite for kind of dirt on
Right.
the Beatles at that point. So, and I think I think the original was a little bit like that, but this book obviously is just the transcripts of the interviews
Right.
that Peter
Peter
Brown and
Brown. Yeah.
Stephen Gaines
Yeah.
did. So,
Right.
yeah, I enjoyed some of it. I mean, I think it claims to be the last one of the last Paul Print interviews that was conducted before John was killed. So it's
Hmm.
maybe one of the last really honest assessments of John, because obviously after someone
Right.
dies, your views on a person can change. So yeah,
Right.
I didn't have Stephen Gaines on the podcast because yeah, I still felt a bit uneasy with some of the the content of the original Love
Right.
You Make book. But yeah, what did you think? Have you read it, or have you? It's quite easy to flick through, isn't it? It's
Well,
not like a
I mean, I've
heavy
read.
book.
Yeah, it's very easy. It's a very easy read. Yeah, and my defendant in the fact is, where else are you going to see interviews with Maureen Starkey? Where
Yeah,
else are you
yeah,
going to see stuff with Magic Alex? Just about every important person is here. I got obviously Alan Williams, but he'll talk to anybody at the time.
he did.
But
Yeah,
I got some George here. You got Derek Taylor. You got Neil. John Eastman. You don't see many interviews with John Eastman.
yeah,
May Pang. Yoko. So for that, I think it's kind of a little bit of a necessity to have. But yeah, but I do have that book. All you need is love as well.
yeah,
But it's really is interesting. You know, when you're reading a book and you kind of see like a little bit of a narrative, you see what the direction that the books are going in, and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, all right, but I do really enjoy this one. So
yeah, yeah.
um okay, let's see here. Russ says I learned from him a volume 2 legacy of Paul can fight. The Dwight Teddy boy throws a good on upper. Was that with a particular guitar player that he had in his band? Um, what's the difference between Cynthia's two books on John? I know she has two, but I have one,
Okay.
but I haven't read it yet.
So she did Twist of Lennon in
Yes.
78, 79. So again, before John was killed. So a little bit more of a mm, honest assessment, maybe. I don't know. It's difficult to say. The good thing about that is that she was married to a guy called John Twist at the time. So Twist of Lennon worked on a couple of
Glennon. Okay.
levels. And then, yeah, the 2005 book, which is just called John, which is much more, obviously, was released many years after John had left us. So that's a bit more, obviously, it's kind of a bit more romantic, maybe. She's looking back with fondness. In 77, 78, it's a whole different, it's only really, it's not even 10 years since they divorced. So
Hmm.
it's got a bit of a kind of rawer angle, whereas the 2005 book, John, is a bit more of a romantic. It forgives John a little bit more in certain ways, but it's still honest. I mean, that's
Right.
it's a difficult relationship John and Cynthia had toward the end, certainly. But of the two of them, probably go with the '05 John. We should just call John
Okay.
of the two of them. But they're
Yeah,
both
that's the one I have, I think.
okay.
That's the one I have. Yeah. Let's see here. Billy Tones agree, Tom and Joe about Juliana, operator and Harpo Bloke. All right, well, let's not make this too much about him. But this is I met Mark in '89. Okay, told me it took 10 years to write Beatles Live and recording. I believe it. I believe it. And yes, he's got to be. John says, would either of you gentlemen like to see a detailed book about John and Paul's visit to New York in 1968 to promote Apple? There's a lot of supporting material, photos, interviews, support. Well, I gotta go back because I don't know if you have the 4 A's for Apple books from AppCore,
I don't know.
um, which are four of the best Beatle
Yeah,
books out there. They are expensive. I mean, well, they were. They're all sold out now. But I think it's hard to get. You have to probably go on eBay or anything like that. But those books are all about Apple, and I have to go back and see, and I'm sure they covered it because they were very thorough. Actually, they were so thorough that they lit that when they got to January of '69 to write about the Let It Be sessions, they listened to that '86 CD bootleg set 3 times, 3 times. That's how thorough. That's how thorough they were, and I've got to interview and talk to a few of the people that contributed to that series, and
Right.
just amazing, amazing books that people need if they're in love with the Beatles. Okay, next one, which you had on, and we just got the book.
Okay.
So we're gonna get to him hopefully next month, and that's the
Okay.
book Off the Ground by
Yes,
J.R.
John
Morse.
Farrar Moores. Yeah,
Morse,
great,
yeah.
great
What's your
book.
take? Yeah.
Yeah, it again makes a bit more sense for me because '90s was when I came to Paul. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I kind of I think you can. I think sometimes you might be more interested in a subject, a Beatle related subject, if you
Right,
were there for it. So I obviously followed Paul. So yeah, Off the Ground was the first album that I bought
right.
of his, and then stuck with him obviously through. Even though there's not. I mean, no, it's sort of a quiet decade for Paul in a way because only 2 studio albums, but there's
But
One Devil One,
yes,
there's Oratorio, there's all sorts of stuff in there.
yes.
Um, Paul is live.
First two Fireman album in the
Fireman, yeah,
'90s.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, good a good analysis of those records. Looks a little again ties Paul in with the contemporary stuff, what was happening in the US, what was happening in the
right.
UK, why did he see a revival? Because yeah, we know that the stock was pretty low, certainly pre-Flowers in the Dirt. So it looks at
Mm,
some of the exterior factors as to why. I think probably more in this country because he J.R. Moores is a UK author, as you know, so it focuses a bit more on Britpop and that kind of stuff, but lots about why, you know, it's quite an interesting point where Paul was really positive about grunge. So
mhm,
even in '97, when he's interviewed by Chris Evans, was and still is a really well known TV host here in the UK on a program called TFI Friday, big youth TV program, Evans says to him, "What are your favourite current bands?" '97, and he says Nirvana. Now by
right.
'97, we know there
Just
is
the
no
more Nirvana, right?
exactly, but he's not interested really in these kind of Britpop bands like Oasis, Blur, Pulp. I don't know how well known they are in the States. Huge
Well,
acts over here.
he did mention in the VH1 round
Oasis,
town
yeah,
hall, he does mention
yeah.
Oasis, yeah.
But that, I
So
mean,
it is.
but go on,
No,
sorry,
go
you
ahead.
go. Well, yeah, but because I mean, you couldn't not. Oasis were humongous in the UK at
Right,
that point.
right,
They were, up until that third album, Be Here Now, comes out, they were everywhere. So yeah, that was the one that he couldn't avoid. But he seemed to relate to grunge more than he
right,
did the kind of English music of the mid '90s, which is, and of course, he ends up working with Dave Grohl
right.
much
Yeah,
much later.
Sirvana,
Yeah,
as they call it, Sirvana.
yeah,
Which is good. Which is good. Yeah, so we will be getting to that book
great. Yeah, I recommend it.
probably tonight or next week or whatever. Another book that we got to get to because again, as I said earlier, we're really good friends with this author, and that's 1973.
Yeah,
The Beatles last year they were Fab by friend John Blaney, which I think this is a very interesting way to look at it because there are some years where all four of them plus the group had success.
yeah.
1970 being one of them. I think 76 as well. And then some people could say some of the 80s years, and then obviously 95 or whatever with the anthology. But anyways, have you gotten this one, and what
That's
do you
on
think
my
of
list.
the
That's
concept of it?
on my list.
Yeah.
I'd like to have him
Right.
on actually. I was thinking about. I've got a few
Yes.
shows lined up. But yeah, hopefully this year I'll get to talk to him because I've always liked his books. He's
Yes.
yeah, he's an author of many fine Beatles books and pops up now and then in Beatles kind of programs. So yeah, and '73 ripe for kind of it's
Right.
kind of the first post Beatle year where they're all doing
Right.
something. they're all kind of they're almost at full pelt, aren't they? All four of them in '73.
Oh yeah,
So
right,
that doesn't happen that often. There's not many years. Obviously, by the time if you think, I wonder actually which years they've all four got an album out. Is there how many years does that happen in the '70s?
right. Well, I yeah, exactly. I think it's 70. Okay,
Right.
it's 73. Okay,
Yeah.
and I think what year did the Ringo the first greatest hits came out? Because I think it was 75. I
So
want to
you've got
say,
you've got something, yeah.
yeah,
So
yes,
yeah, I
yeah.
suppose so, but that's not a studio album, is it? That's a
Right,
compilation, I
it's a
suppose.
great yeah, it's a compilation, I guess. But yeah, so yeah, it's very rare that all 4 of them had albums out in the same year.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
so yeah. Somebody that we both we had on very academic style book, and that was This Was Me, by
Ah, that
Richard
was me.
Driver.
Richard, great. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love Richard. What a
yeah,
lovely
yeah,
man
really
Richard
good
is.
guest. Yeah, yeah. So good chat about the Paul McCartney's career and legacy beyond the Beatles. It's
Yeah.
funny because, excuse me, I mean this last 20 years, maybe 15 years, I mean, we've really seen a resurgence of books about Paul's solo
Mm,
career finally. Which if
yeah,
you got books about Paul in the past, I mean, it was this much Beatles and then this much solo stuff,
yeah,
which you know
yeah.
it wasn't fair because the guy, at the time he had like 45, 40 to 50 year, solo career, and then they're only writing, so many pages where they're dedicating, a third, 2/3 of the book to his life prior to his solo career.
Yeah.
But I was really happy with
Yeah,
Richard
great book.
Driver's book
Yeah,
here.
great
Yeah.
book and great guest. Yeah, just a really interesting guest.
Yes. Um, Another aspect of Paul, we talked about the 90s. Really good one that we got last year by Ian Derbyshire, and that was McCartney, The
In the
Long
long not
Naughties.
yeah, I haven't read that.
Geez,
I haven't I
yeah,
listened to your episode or watched your
right,
episode. But yeah, he's that again, that's on my to-do list. But there's
right.
as we know, there's just so many. I've only got so
It
much time.
is right. Exactly. You
Yeah.
only got so much time. I didn't know if you picked this one up. I was curious, because you don't see a lot of Ringo books out there either, and that is Drumming is His Madness.
No, I'd like
This
to
is
read
kind
that
of
as
like a
well.
yeah, this is like a discography of Ringo. The guy gives his thoughts. He rates everything in
Okay.
here too. But the Ringo Starr discography by Andrew James. A lot of fun. Because Ringo doesn't get a lot of the attention that
No.
his discography doesn't get a lot of attention that the other three do. But
Yeah, there's a book which is behind me, Ringo with a Little Help by Michael Seth
yes,
Starr, which I think
right,
is there's the Alan Clayson book, Straight Man or Joker, but
hmm
that's from '92, so
right,
that's many years out of date
right,
now. But
right.
they're the main two that I can think of that are just about Ringo.
Right. And then obviously we got a lot of books from Luca Prazzi the last couple
Yes,
years, and then this one is Music as Ideas Volume 2, which I don't know if have you had Luca on your show?
I haven't had Luca on. No, I
Yeah.
should. Again, he's on my list of people to interview. But you guys
Right.
always do such a great job with Lucas. So
Oh, well,
yeah,
thank you
you've
very
got
much.
no. Seriously, there's a really good rapport. Sometimes there's
Yeah.
you can really sense a rapport with an author, and you guys always
Yeah.
get that. I get that sense when I listen to you talk to Luca.
Yeah, he's a wonderful person. Hope to
Yeah.
meet him in person one day. I know Andy got to meet him last year.
Okay.
Well, yeah, while he's visiting Italy, so that was great. Let's get some comments here. You may or may not be aware that I collect Yoko Ono books. I have several different versions of Grapefruit. And you know what? I do want to get that. I do want to get Grapefruit, but I need the original 64 or one in Japanese. If anyone has it, let me know. Okay, well there you go. Well, hopefully you can find it there, Dino. Let's see here. GG probably put the rumor on himself. Yeah, probably did. He probably did. Okay, that's for tone. 78. I guess what did no, well, John wouldn't have released anything in
No John
78.
album. No.
Yeah.
No.
3 copies of Twist of Lennon, 2 mint,
Two
one
mint,
very
one very
worn.
warm.
Okay. Got you. This is excellent. So well done, Tom. Thank you. Thank you.
Ah,
Hit that like button. Yes, please. And please subscribe to the
hit the
channel
like.
if you haven't subscribed. And right up here, Right above Joe, you'll see a QR code, which is called Buy Me a Coffee. And you can hit that QR code. And if you want to, it's not required, but if you'd like to, you can help support the show by buying us a coffee. We also signed up for Patreon as well, so you guys can support the channel that way. Again, not mandatory, but it is appreciated. Lynn says I have the off the ground, but not read yet. Maybe I can get it read before the interview. Yeah. So for the change, okay. Well, we're gonna try to get him in February, for sure. And don't forget to listen to Joe's pod with Jr. 1972 had one solo album. Yeah, and that would have been sometime in New York
New
City.
York City, yeah.
Yeah. So hey guy, how you doing, Billy? Good to see you. Thanks for showing up. Tony, how you doing, my friend? We're talking about Beatles books, and I know you've read quite a few. Let's see, I've read Long Naughties, but that 1970 for the last Beatles fad doesn't seem to be available on Kindle yet. Okay, well, I we can talk to John next time we have him on about that. Let's see here. Luca is amazing and kind. He is. He is. Let's see. I was just listening to the White Album. Well,
Good
that's a
choice.
great, good choice. Absolutely, absolutely. 74 was very close to being a year. Yeah, again, with Band on the Run being released in December of '73, absolutely, it was very close. I mean, a lot of people consider that a 1974 album from Paul.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see here. So, watch Back to the Egg TV special from November '79 in US. Why in the UK was that played? It made absolutely no sense. And the same thing with the rock show
Rock show,
film
yeah.
too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was released in the '80s as well. So, just bad timing or whatever. Joe, talk about your show a little bit more. Tell people where
Well,
they can find you and social media and all that.
before we go, there is one I'd like to just
Yeah,
which I've just finished actually, which
right.
is this book, which is called John and
Oh, I've
Paul:
seen that.
A
Yes.
Love Story in Songs. Now, this is written by author called Ian Leslie, who isn't really a Beatle writer, hasn't written any books about the Beatles previously, but
Mm,
is incredibly talented and gives a really fascinating psychological look at John and Paul's relationship. Now, this is not released until end of March in the UK. It's definitely getting an American release. It's got a different cover. I don't know
yes.
why, but it's
Yeah.
got a different cover.
Well, it's
But
funny because sometimes they do. I remember when Ken Womack's George Martin books were released, they had different covers in the UK too, which I actually liked better than here
yeah,
in the
yeah,
States.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
quite common, but yeah, it's a proper.
right.
There's not that many books that are just about John and Paul. It doesn't pull any punches. It looks at the relationship and how Paul dealt with life after John, as well as starting right back to that summer's day in Walton when they
Mm,
first properly got to meet each other. But yeah, Ian Leslie, Love Story and Songs. I'm interviewing Ian next week, I think, and I
excellent.
cannot wait for that. I think it's so far it's an early contender for Beatle Book of the Year, which is
Wow.
it's
High
a bold
praise.
statement. It's a bold
Yes.
statement.
I
But
love that.
where you can find me, Tom? Well, I'm glad you asked,
Yes.
Tom, because uh, search for Beatles, search for Beatles books on all of the normal pod platforms. It's an episode every month, hopefully, as long as my life and my family don't start gnawing at me too much to get which thankfully they haven't done so far. So yeah, Beatles books. I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter, which you just at Books Beatles. Blue Sky, same thing. And I've still got that Instagram page, which is I think
Yes.
at Books Beatles, which as I said earlier, for those that might join later, where I've archived all 400 of the Beatles books that I have and a few magazines as well. So you can have a look through the collection in there. And I also post about kind of new episodes of the podcast and what I'm up to and where I'm going and crazy adventures that I don't get up to. But yeah, that's the
Right.
main places to find me. I don't have a Facebook page as yet, but yeah,
All right.
Beatles books.
Excellent. Thoughts about maybe hopping on YouTube to release
It's
your shows
yeah.
on?
Do you know it's a big piece of it's a big kind of gap in the market. Really, I know that a lot of people
Right,
digest podcasts on YouTube now. I probably could just upload them all with I
right,
can't obviously do the videos now because even though I've got the
right,
videos, that's going to be a
right.
lot of effort and time. I should
Yeah,
do really. It's just getting that time, Tom, as you know.
I understand.
I,
I understand.
I remember you gave me a piece of advice, which I hope
Yeah,
you won't mind sharing. You messaged me
please.
after, which you messaged me after we done our episode in 2020 and
Yeah,
before I launched, and you said good luck with it. But you said the one piece of advice you would give me about running or starting a podcast is don't let it take over your life. And I've
yeah,
held that dear to me, and I think that's actually helped me because I think if you take on too much with it, then how many podcasts start, how many Beatle podcasts start and don't finish, end
right,
after only 5 or
right,
6, maybe 10, 12 episodes. But I think
right,
if you let it flow through your life naturally and focus and spend time on it, but at the same time don't let it get in the way of real life. I
right.
think that's so. Thank you for that piece of advice, Tom.
Well, you're welcome. And I gotta say, it's tough. It really is tough. It's you want it to be successful, and you
Yeah,
want to, pay attention to what people are saying and what they're thinking, and so it is tough to find that happy medium where you're spending time with the show, you're making it, helping it grow or whatever, but you're also having, a personal, healthy personal life where you're also just not spending all your attention,
yeah,
um, you know, on the shows, and again, especially if you're doing more than one show. I
yeah.
mean, it's
Which you
tough.
are. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah. So, but Joe, I mean, what else? What are books coming out this year? What have we heard so far?
That's a good question. What
You
have I?
know,
There's not. It's still early-ish days in the year, really. So I don't
right,
know a huge amount about what's coming out.
right.
I can't think of anything. I mean, oh, there's. I'll tell you what is coming out, and there is the Yoko biography by David Sheff. So,
Mm,
as you will probably know, David Sheff did the famous Playboy interviews with John and Yoko in the Dakota
right.
in 1980, and he's written an official, I think it's an official biography
Yeah.
of Yoko, and that's out. I think end of March. I will reach out as I would do normally to the publisher to see if David
Hmm.
would like to come on to talk about that book. But yeah, there's a couple of books about Yoko, and there's been a spate of them recently.
Right.
And hopefully this one will be, but it's a definitive look of her life before John, during, and after. So yeah, that's one that I'm quite looking forward to this year.
Right.
Are we? You might know more than this, more than me, Tom. Are we getting the second Mal Evans book this year, or would that
Well,
be
it's still planned. It's still
okay?
planned for this year. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, last time we had Womack on earlier this month, and he gave us an update
Okay, yeah, I
um,
remember hearing. Yeah,
on it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I was just going to ask you something else, but it just totally left me.
Happens to
But
me all
yeah,
the
I mean,
time.
I look forward to these books. Oh, here, let me get you one thought on this guy right here. What was your
Ah,
thoughts
oh,
on
beautiful.
this?
Yeah, I've got it there, the big hardback
Yeah,
version.
yeah. So do I. Yeah,
The pictures are
right.
beautiful.
Yeah,
There's some brilliant pictures in there, pictures that even the likes of me and you have never seen before. That for me
right,
is the strength of the book, is the pictorial
right,
content. I think some of the insights into the songs are really interesting. The podcast that has been released recently was
right,
fine. I don't think it was outstanding, but I don't think it was a disaster either.
right,
So yeah, I'm glad. A bit like the photo exhibition that he did. I'm glad that we've got it. It's
right.
anything that we can get, we need to take from Paul.
Right. Well, I mean, that's being said, I mean, it's good to have something that they themselves put out. But we also know that Paul likes to tell a good story, and they might not always be factual,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
definitely.
And
But yeah,
the one that I always like to harp on is, we weren't coming to America without a number one. Okay. Well, George debunked that in the anthology,
yeah,
on the
yeah.
same episode of the anthology. He says, no, no, we were.
We were
we're
booked to
scheduled
go
to go
there.
there.
We were
Yeah,
booked
we
to
were
go
booked to
there, he
go there.
says, directly
Exactly.
after the
Yeah,
Paris trip. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Do you know, I
Yeah,
I frighten myself how often I say little bits from the anthology just in normal conversation.
right.
So
Yes.
there's the one that I say a lot is I could have done without it myself, which is Ringo
Right.
talking about the Paul talking about LSD. It's amazing
Oh.
little bits of little bit. It's amazing how the Beatles creep into our day to day lives, isn't it, Tom?
Yes. And then speaking of LSD, I mean, that was one of the aspects of Steve Mattio's book that I really like on the Magical Mystery Tour
Yeah.
section, where he takes that deep dive into talking about the history of LSD, because we know a few of them took it more than probably than what they should have.
Yeah, I think that's a real some a direction the Beatle books are going to go in the future is, the basic kind of story we know.
Right,
So we need to dive into different sections, different
right,
parts of the story. Give us a book on George's 74 tour. Give us a book
yeah,
on John's one-to-one concert. Give us a book
right.
on Paul in the mid
Which
80s.
I yeah, which I think now the one-to-one documentary just found a distributor,
Could be, yeah,
so hopefully we'll be seeing that in April, I think, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
So that would be very cool. That would be
yeah.
very cool.
You guys will. I don't know about
So,
us. I don't know about us
well,
when we're
we'll
going to
see.
get it.
The question that everybody still is asking to this day is, when are we gonna get volume 2 of Tune In?
Who
I mean,
knows?
that's still the question.
I know that he when I as a tiny little insight is when I did those interviews with Mark, he did them
Right,
from his office, and they were an
right,
interview. They were an evening interview. Sorry, so
right,
he came on the screen, and behind him was files. So
right,
he's definitely working non-stop on it. So I just I can't give you much more information than that, unfortunately. But I know that I think the the straw we can grab at is I think he's working on 2 and 3 together
at the same
because
time, and that was
yeah,
my theory as well. That's my theory as
I
well.
think he said that. I don't think that's a
Right,
secret. I think he
yeah,
just from a personal point of view, I think he's trying to
okay,
get through. So I imagine the gap between 2 and 3 will be much shorter. Who knows,
right.
Tom? Who knows? We live in hope, as the
We're living
Russell
in hope,
said.
living in hope, living in hope. Let's talk about McCartney Legacy Volume 2 for a minute before we sign off.
Okay.
You've had him on. We're gonna have him on a second time here for this month. Just
Yeah.
finished it this morning. Just
Okay.
finished it this morning, and fantastic stuff. The attention to detail, very Lewison-esque as
Yes.
well. These guys have definitely done their homework.
Mm.
Love the people that they've been able to get
Yeah.
to talk, about their experience working with Sir McCartney. And what was your thoughts?
I loved it more. I think I loved it more than Volume One. I think because I'm more interested in that era, and you might.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've listened to the interview that I did with
not
Alan
yet.
and Adrian.
I try
Okay.
not to when we're all trying to do the same thing. I try not to
Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
until we've done it, because
Okay.
I don't want that to influence.
Yeah.
And I don't
So.
want to know the questions you've asked him because then I'm like, damn it, then I can't ask that question.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
focused on because it's so much. I couldn't do it all
right.
in one go. So I focused on 77 to 80.
Hmm.
Because I'm really interested in that period. I love the idea that Paul's at the top of the
Right,
mountain in his Madison Square Garden. He's everywhere, and then
right,
as we know, it goes kind of a little bit off for different reasons
right,
through London town and back to the egg. I'm just really interested. I mean, I love Back to the Egg, and I think we said before, as everyone should do. So
right.
I focused my interview questions on that kind of 77 to 80 period, and I love that period. I love the relationship between the four of them. Obviously, they're all with us. I love Paul's kind of slightly losing direction with London Town. Back to the
Hmm.
Egg was again slightly odd. You've released this album and then you're going to do a tour just in the UK, and obviously Japan was coming. That didn't happen. You're not going to go to the States
Right.
to promote it. You're going to send
Well,
Lawrence and Steve
yeah.
and stuff, and odd.
Right. Yeah. That is odd. I mean, we do know that, because we had Lawrence Juber on the
You
show,
did,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we learned, yeah, and we learned from him that U.S. leg of the tour was in the works.
yeah.
Um, and
But
then he said,
but
what
later,
how that would be. Later, yes, in the
Yeah,
year in 1980, and he said it would have coincided with the release of Coming Up, so it kind of been like 76 all over again. You're touring the US with the number one single, just like they did
yeah,
in 76,
yeah.
with
But I
Silly
think
Love Songs.
even by that point, the music industry, you need to strike while that iron's hot. You need
Yeah,
to kind of
right,
because by that point, there's so much going on musically. There's new wave and
right,
disco and all that kind of stuff going on, and people's attentions are
right,
more. You're getting into MTV, you're getting into multi-channel TV and more radio stations. People's attention was a bit
right.
more wavy. Pulls out, back to the you needed to strike. I think it would have been a bigger record if Good Night Tonight was on it, and I think
Hmm.
it would have been bigger if he'd done more promotion for it. So yeah, going back to the
Well, yeah,
book, I you know
good.
I love all that stuff. I love all that. I love that era. So yeah, brilliant book. Can't wait for volume 3, but I think it'll be a bit of a longer gap.
Well, yeah, I still think they need to sign a new
Yeah,
deal.
yeah,
And then obviously, hopefully, they've already started doing a little bit of work for
yeah,
volume three, which I'm sure they have.
yeah,
But hopefully, because that volume one, took 10 years of planning, so hopefully, volume three, won't take 10 years. So, but
yeah, yeah,
fantastic job from the two of them.
yeah,
I'm so glad I know them
yeah.
been able to share time with them. So great people. You got a few shows lined up already coming up, and you said
I
you got a
have
new one coming soon.
Yes, I've got this one. The Ian Leslie book will probably
Right.
be the March episode. I have just released on Friday this one,
Yeah.
the George Harrison
Right.
book. I'm speaking to hopefully an author, Alison Bumstead, who has written a
Hmm.
book about Teen Set, which was the teen magazine
Okay.
through the 60s and into the 70s, about how they cover the Beatles and the kind of impact of female fronted journalism. So hopefully I'll be speaking to her.
Hmm.
And then after that, who knows, Tom? Who knows?
Right. Who knows exactly right? Because I mean, it is you do go month to month, sometimes week by week, because we are excuse me, mainly a weekly show, so
Yes.
you know, so. Uh, but I'm really happy for you and your success
Thanks, Tom.
that you've
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate
had
it.
for the show, for your show. And why isn't this coming up? Oh, here we go. Madeline McCarroll's Yoko book. I mean,
Yeah,
have you seen that one?
I have seen that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Would like to speak
Okay.
to her at some point. She's done a
Mm.
few interviews on other podcasts.
Yes. Yep. Let's see here. Lynn says, really enjoyed this show, Tom and Joe. Although I ate into time, I had planned to read more of McCartney Legacy. Well, you'll get to it. You'll get to it. Let's see here. Russ says Nashville Saga was incredible. Had no idea Jimmy caused so much trouble here. Well, I don't want to get into that here, but there will be a talking point when we talk to Adrian and Alan today, actually. So Jimmy will be a topic of discussion. Thank you, Susan.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Susan.
you. I'm glad you're always here. Really great show. Thank you, Tone. And we all you all know that we love you very much and glad you're doing well. And so that's gonna wrap it up for this installment. Joe, hold on for a second before you
Will do.
take off or whatever. But and our good friend Joan, love you, girl. Thanks for being here. And thank you, everybody, for being here again. I know I'm repeating myself over and over again. Thank you, Tone, Russ, Susan, Dino, buddy Broadstreets, John Bazzini, Russ, Tony, Tim, Billy, who else? Everybody here. Mike. Who else was here? Henry, Boyan, Ali. The list goes on and on. Henry,
Big,
Nick.
big numbers,
The list
Tom.
goes
Big
on.
numbers
Yeah,
today.
big numbers. Ted, Day Tripper. Thank you, everybody. Owen, our good buddy Owen. Again, really appreciate it. Joe, thank you so much for coming on here
Thanks,
and give
Tom.
us an
Pleasure.
update on what you've been doing and talking about all these, wonderful books. And hopefully they just keep on coming. So
Hope so.
everybody out there, thank you very much for joining us. We'll have a new episode this Saturday. Make sure you catch Andy on his live streams on Sundays. And I'll be back next week, either Wednesday or Thursday, for what I like to call your midweek Maca break, if you will. So, everybody out there, have a wonderful day. Take care.
Cheers, guys.